much obliged to have you join me on the show TMI Monday. My name is Sonny Duke Okosun, your host on the program. Okay, today on the show, we've got a couple of talking points, a couple of issues that we'll be looking at on the show today. We'll try as much as we can to have a very balanced panelist, but our great concern is that every now and then, some things that are not worthy, are not in consonance with broadcasting code. Somehow they find a way to just filter out of the mouths of those saying them. But we'll continue to do our best to put them in check and avoid any trouble with regulators, as it were. Of course, you know that in every profession, there are rules of engagement, all right? And in every society, there's what you call the rule of law, which is some analysts have said supersedes every other thing. But recall that recently at the annual NBA conference, the president talked about giving consideration to national interest and national security against the rule of law. But that has created a lot of reactions and counter-reactions across the media, both the traditional and the electronic. That will take a major chunk of time in our conversations today on the show. And then, of course, the issue of direct primaries and indirect primaries. What's up with it? There are accusations and counter-accusation on that one. Of course, you know Mr. President was already in China for an official visit to that country. The presidency came out recently to say all the nations of the world are courting Mr. President. We'll go straight to our discussion. We already have three of our panelists here to begin our conversation on the show. I'd like to thank very especially Prince Charles Omojo for joining us. He's a broadcast journalist, media entrepreneur, and of course a political analyst. We thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
I also have with us Fares Okbere. Fares is a politician. Fares, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And of course, I've got Barrister Said Michael Zegwagi, who is a civil society activist. Barrister Said Michael, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Respecting Igbowosa Obaseki Williams is also a politician to join this discussion. What we're talking about, let's start off from the comments made by the U.S. president against Nigeria. Of course, on Thursday, we started this discussion, but somehow we just couldn't really go far. And then we had Harrison Zeko here, but he couldn't make it here today due to other commitment. But we also have other gentlemen to join the conversation. Well, that statement credited to Donald Trump describing our president in a very derogatory manner. Did it go that well with me personally? Because we're talking about our president. Our president is a symbol, is the symbol of Nigeria because he represents all of us. All right. So why would Donald Trump, get to that level of trying to use derogatory remarks about our president? It was something that happened sometime in April, but it came to the fore just last week, Monday, courtesy of the story coming from the Financial Times of London, where he said that, or where they said in that report that Donald Trump said he never wanted to see someone as a president. I mean, it was quite disheartening. But as usual, this is an election year. The politicians, for some analysts, took advantage of that to either, react positively or negatively, as the case may be. Depends on the side of the divide they belong to. But some say the statement has a lot of interpretation, has a lot of meanings, and some say, well, that statement also perhaps reflects some of the challenges back home. I don't know where you are in the whole matrix of discussion or conversation or opinion, but our panelists will excite us a little bit this morning. Let me start with Prince Charles Omojo. Were you taken aback by that comment coming from Donald Trump, someone who met President Muhammadu Buhari in the U.S., commended him, lauded his effort to rid the country of corruption? Then, of course, on another side, we're hearing this kind of comment, which again has not been authenticated by any U.S. government agency. I'd like to get your thoughts along this line.
Yeah, actually, I'm not surprised because that man should pass for a very good comedian. And for him, as a president of the world's biggest democracy, the world's richest economy, to make such a sarcastic statement against Nigeria, I don't think I take it good. I'm not happy about it. And I will request the government of Nigeria to request for serious apology for saying that. A man that the President of America should not have made that kind of statement. And I think we should recommend to the whole world that in henceforth, anybody that wants to hold such an exalted position should be given a psychiatric test, because I think that man is suffering from verbal diarrhea. That's what I take.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Faris, is there any element of substance in that comment made by Trump against the background that he had already commended the president for his efforts to drive the country in a particular direction?
Well, like I said here before, let's look at what he said. First of all, he said that he doesn't want to ever see the president again. Someone as lifeless like the Nigerian president again. And that's a strong statement. You know, when someone says, I don't want to see the president of the biggest economy in Africa, that's something that we should be worried about. And why did he say that? You know, these people just rush and say, oh, I want to go see, because most Nigerian politicians, particularly those in the ruling party, think when your president meets with the American president, it's a kind of like an endorsement to say, oh, you are doing well, or things like that. He makes comments, and probably those comments are things that they were pre-written before, and he just announced them. But having met one-on-one with him, he was disappointed. And then he came out and told his aides that, well, this meeting was a flop, and I don't want to meet this man again. And that's because in Benin, they say the things that are said, you should worry more about the things that are said behind your back. You know, because and those are the things he said. He said it behind, but not the ones he said in his front. The ones he said behind him were the critical issues. A man who has spent 25 or to 30% of his time in governance in foreign hospitals. I mean, what do you expect the American president to say? There's a problem, and Nigerians, what the Americans are saying to Nigerians is that, look, get somebody who is full of life. 2019 is coming, get somebody who's full of life. The Americans are not happy with this president, and they feel he's lifeless. And that's the position of the Americans.
But anybody can fall ill. I mean, that's something you can control as a human being. So anybody can fall ill. If you can go to the hospital. Yes. If you are ill, where do you go to? You go to the hospital.
If you are ill, why do you want to put yourself out into public service?
But
if you are not feeling well, you can't have a sit down.
There are stories, there are incidents where people had one health challenge or the other. They ruled their country effectively. Even the U.S., as big as it is, has had presidents who had health challenges. Some were on wheelchairs, and they deliver. They rule their country. So that's not something we should really...
The statement on that lifeless it doesn't just go down to just the health issues.
Okay.
I mean, you look at the country today, it doesn't look like we have a president, because there's so many things that are happening where you need that leadership to be able to control what is going on. And you see that the leadership which the president represents is missing. There's so much killings, there's so much nepotism going on, so much corruption, and when you need a leader who should come out and say, oh, look at us, and put a stop to this, the leader is not there. Just yesterday, we read on the papers that almost 50 serving Nigerian army personnel were brutally murdered by Boko Haram.
But the Nigerian army has come out to deny that report, that story was not correct.
The problem is,
Buratai, the chief of army staff, came out to say it was a hoax. Yeah.
The problem is that since we had a new chief of army staff, he has tried to muscle the media to make sure that the information that comes out is screened. Right now, before the media publish anything about the military, they have to give it to the generals to look at it. And that's how low things have become. That's how much of control these people want to have over the media and everything. It's not supposed to be like that.
How did you get this information that came out if it was
published? It was on Premium Times.
Yeah.
It was on Premium Time.
You don't have Premium Time. That's what you're saying.
Did you see that they arrested a Premium Time reporter who was just released about 2 weeks ago? That's to tell you how much they despise information. Okay. They don't want Nigerians to have information.
Okay, let me proceed there. Let me get your thoughts in here. In one breath, you commend a man. In another one, you deride the same person. And then, of course, you say lofty things about the person in his presence. You get behind him, you say some very derogatory things. I mean, is that somebody we should take seriously? I'm talking about the comments coming from President Donald Trump. Against the background, is that these antecedents of acting this way?
Donald Trump is a man of funny character. Some people have described him as a showman or a comedian, somebody who persistently, throw tantrums, by making use of his Twitter or even, social media. A man, who would rather, make certain comments on the social media even before, effectively deploying the conventional media. But however, be that as it may, the statements made by him, particularly on President Muhammadu Buhari, is one I don't want to discard, too quickly, because it is a statement or comment that contain, some form of substance. Even if the man is of a funny character, the statement made is not funny at all. It is weighty. He described President Muhammadu Buhari as lifeless. Personally, I've had to have a deep reflection on the comment, and I discovered that that could be a direct description of his own perception of what he perceived of the man, having had a closer look at him, related with him, and interacted with him. Perhaps our president did not, strike him as a man who is mentally aware, who is, physically balanced. Again, that comment may be a direct allusion, metaphorical allusion, to the state of the nation. Looking at Nigeria at the moment, Nigeria does not look like a country that is stable. The security organogram, is in a state of cataclysm. At the time, we were troubled by Boko Haram, and they told us that Boko Haram had been completely decimated. But the activities of Boko Haram in recent time, leave much to be desired. Again, is that at the time the Fulani herdsmen placed this country under siege. Up to this moment, no single Fulani herdsman has been apprehended, nor even prosecuted.
Several have been arrested. Several have been prosecuted. Let's put that in the right context.
Even though we all know that our president may even be the patron of Miyetti Allah. Perhaps that is the reason why these people operate with all sense of recklessness and senseless.
There is no correlation between him being the patron of Miyetti Allah and then with these dastardly acts of some of these. There's no correlation. Let's not push that further.
In a not too distant time, there were activities that took place, and Miyetti Allah as a group came out to own up.
But he really say the person that asked them to do that did
being responsible for what happened.
Yes.
A case in point is Benue State.
Yes.
The one that happened in Agatu, don't forget. The head of the Miyetti Allah group in Benue State particularly came out to say the reason why these heinous activities took place in Agatu was because of the anti-grazing law that was passed by the Benue State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
Now, how do you situate that comment? They were directly telling Nigerians that they are directly responsible for the activities that took place because of that law that was legitimately and lawfully passed by a lawful constituted assembly.
Okay.
Now, what beat me hollow, what made me surprised, is the continued silence that emits from Aso Rock, from the Aso Rock Villa. As we speak, the president had not deemed fit to go down to the scene of crime, perhaps to condole with the victim.
But
that was giving human face to governance.
Yes, in the face of all of these crises, he visited Benue State. You recall?
He took him
but he was there. He was there. He was there. Why don't you give it to him that he was there?
He didn't go there immediately. That's my problem.
Okay, let's
again is that he has not even come out to issue a single official statement.
Okay, let me
see the activities
let me pause it there, because I know that several agencies of government have already done that, and they are still doing that. But let me bring Obaseki Williams. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
You followed this issue of the comment made by President Donald Trump against our own president. What were your reactions to that statement, or those statements? Yeah.
Now, first of all, the first part will be the existence of that statement, because in my own little research, I'm yet to see any clip where the man categorically said that. I'm here to see or hear his media aide or any of his political appointees.
That's Donald Trump now.
Yes,
okay.
Defending that statement.
Okay.
Many a times, somehow, we get too emotional or sentimental that the slightest, not even statement or action, perception will flare up. And with due respect, if you ask me, as an observer, there are many statements and many persons I will always treat with kid gloves.
And this is one of them.
Thank you very much. President Donald Trump, to a very large extent, I am really perturbed. I'm troubled why such a civilized country, a very respected country as the United States of America, to ensure such a person who talks so flippant, makes so much unguided statements. One, I've not been able to prove if he categorically said that about President Buhari, but I've heard him say so many things. I'm not making a case for him that he could not have said it. He can say worse than that. I tell you the truth. Donald Trump can say worse than that. But for a man of his age, talking about, let's do a little comparison between him and the President Buhari. In age, he's equally an old man too. And if he thinks Buhari is lifeless, please let him come out and help us to defend the lifelessness in him. Is it the lifelessness as an individual, head status? In lifelessness, is it lifelessness as in policy, the political outlook of the contemporary Nigeria? Or lifelessness, I don't know what he means with that. That, in my humble opinion, that is indeed a very subjective statement.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come to Prince Charles Omoro. They talk that this statement coming from, this statement that came from Donald Trump, even though just like Ike said, there hasn't been any official statement from the U.S. government, I said that a while ago, to the credibility or the authentication of that statement. But does it in any way, like some have said, reflect the current situation in our country, where people say all that Nigeria needs is leadership to drive it to Eldorado?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I will remind us that we're in the era of a political biggest market transfer. So, and people say all sorts of things. But don't forget, we're also in the period of fake news flying from left to right. So it's not everything you read in the social media or the mainstream media that is true.
So is this one of those fake news?
I believe it's a fake news because I expect the Foreign Minister of Nigeria to have written officially to the State House to verify if the president really said that. If he said that, Nigeria deserves a comprehensive apology because we are their biggest partners economically. So I don't believe he said that, but if he did say that, I'm sorry for him to have said that. But I believe he didn't say that.
What do you make of the current challenges in the country vis-a-vis leadership thrust, like I asked a while ago?
Yes. You know, we're in a election year. So most of these things you are seeing are politically motivated. You were talking about Meitiala, Fulani herdsmen. We don't have herdsmen killing anybody. What we have are cattle wrestlers, criminals, Boko Haram that are fleeing from the solid bombardment of Nigerian army. I lived all over the country. I have traveled far and wide. I've been to Maiduguri, Sokoto, Kaduna, everywhere. I've never seen a Fulani herdsman with AK-47. What we are seeing today is because of the solid bombardment of Nigerian army on air, land, and sea. So they are fleeing from the war zone. So as they are coming down south, they are ravaging all the farmlands with their AK-47 and their cows. They don't even care. You know, that's what we're seeing and experiencing. So until the day we realize that we're in a war situation, it will be better for Nigeria because we should not treat security issues as political. They are joking with security issues. Today is not our turn. Tomorrow it might be our turn. Maiduguri is suffering today because the previous government ignored the issue of Boko Haram. What we are seeing today is not cattle herdsmen. It's not herdsmen. It's Boko Haram. They are fleeing from the war zone and coming south. So, and they are cattle wrestlers. They stole a lot of cows from the farmers. So because they also want to sell those cows, so as they are coming down south, they are ravaging all the farmlands, the rice farms, the cassava farms, so that they can sell their cows. You can imagine where a single cow is killed, they level the whole village. Those people, are they normal? They are not humans. Most of them are not even Nigerians, for crying out loud. So we should not treat security issues as political.
Okay, now, but the government has not responded to say these guys are Boko Haram. They describe them as, in fact, the discussion is usually herders versus farmers clash, or herdsmen versus farmers clash, as it were. So if you say these guys are Boko Haram, I mean, how do we juxtapose those to a line of thinking?
You know, when you're in war, you don't expose your security details. If they call them terrorists, it will escalate the war. They know already that they are terrorists. So the government will play pranks to them, thinking they don't know who they are. The government knows because they have all the security informations about their activities. Okay. So whatever you are hearing the government saying in the media is not actually what they're acting. Because I happen to have a brother that was once a DP of the police. So, and I work with some army generals' children. They don't reveal security issues in the media.
Okay.
So it's a security situation in our hands, and we are at war. So whatever you hear is just what they want you to hear. The details and the manipulation and the activities of the army, they will never reveal to the media.
Okay, let me proceed there. Faraz, you feel differently about it, because you're nodding your head, probably means that you concur.
No, I completely disagree. Okay. Completely disagree wholeheartedly with him and what he has said. And I feel surprised that most people who feel some certain sentiments, you know, towards some certain attachment towards the current government do feel the way my brother here feels. But you know, when before I respond to that issue of the Fulani stuff, I will go back to what Mr. Mora just said. When Donald Trump made some statements, there was a picture of Donald Trump leaning on President Muhammadu Buhari and smiling, and that picture, you know, they took it everywhere. You know, so you know, this is very happy. This is Donald Trump, the best president in the world, endorsing President Muhammadu Buhari, and this is an endorsement. This is a strong statement. This has never happened before. You've not seen a Nigerian, a president of America giving this kind of reception to a president from Nigeria. And then this statement comes out from not from Vanguard, not from Punch, not from Sahara Reporters, not from ITV, not from EBS, you know, from Financial Times. That's one of the biggest institutions in the world in terms of media. When we talk about media, New York Times, Financial Times, they are the biggest. You know what I'm talking about? And it comes out from this. These are people who have sources everywhere. And when they come out and say something, they don't just say things from the ordinary. And they come out and they said, look at what President Trump said to his aides. And Trump has never come out to say, oh, I didn't say it. None of his aides have come out and said, I didn't say it. Even the Nigerian government invited the American ambassador on this statement, and the guy did not deny it. Now, we now have people say, oh, Trump is useless, Trump is a joker, Trump is a comedian. But when Trump was smiling with President Muhammadu Buhari, oh, they all said all kind of things about it, but that's for that. And now, to the issues, because that statement, when you look at it holistically, you see that it might not certainly do with the age or the physical appearance of the president. I made it clear here that Mandela was president at the age of 70-something. He did one term, he stepped aside, he was too strong to have gone second term. He came and said, oh, well, I'm tired, you know, I've done all my best, I've given my all and all to this country, and he stepped aside. Nobody called him lifeless. He was older than President Muhammad by the time he left office. But that statement has to do with the issues of governance, policies, because you also realize that when they gave a press briefing together, President Muhammadu Buhari and Donald Trump, he also allayed fears and deep concerns about the killings going on in the country and the silence from the president. And he said it openly, that he's worried that the killings going on in the country is too much. But you see that because those who are government sympathizers would never tell you that he also said that. They went on brandishing the picture of Donald Trump and President Muhammadu Buhari without saying the critical issues that were discussed. What were the issues that were discussed? And that's for that. Now, coming back to the issue of the herdsmen and Fulani, herdsmen, I don't want to ascribe it to any particular ethnic tribe, you know, but he said, the way my brother here analyzed it, and if we should go by him, it shows that the government has failed. Because what he is saying practically here is that, you know, these are terrorist attacks, but the government doesn't want to own up to it. Now you have a government who proscribe protesters, people who, none of them have been caught with arms. None of them have been arrested with arms. The IPOB, these are people who are protesting, asking for their own country. Whether they are protesting legitimate or not, but it has not been recorded that it went violent. You have them, in less than 6 months, they were proscribed as a terrorist organization. The government was quick to proscribe it. Right now, they are still officially proscribed in Nigeria as a terrorist organization. Now you have a group that has gone from village to village, killing people. You know, all the way from Edo to Delta to Ondo to Benue to Plateau. They've gone from village to village, killing people. And this group, the government has not come out to proscribe the group. Not the ethnic coloration, but particularly the criminal elements of that group as a terrorist organization.
Which is more important?
Yes.
Describing them, proscribing them as a terrorist group, or reducing the impact of their activities?
Both. Why proscribing them as a terrorist organization? It means that now they move from the bottom list of priorities to the A list of priorities in terms of security, the way security approach them. I'm not a security operative, you know, but I know that there are several groups in the world, even the American government, they prescribe different groups as terrorists or not terrorists, so that people, when dealing with these groups, you know that I'm dealing with the terrorist group. You understand? So when dealing with certain elements of these groups. Now, if they prescribe these groups as terrorists, it shows that, okay, the government knows the activities of this group, has seen the activities of this group. A group that goes out to kill people, kill children. You understand? That's a terrorist group. And then the silence, because what is more annoying is not even the silence from the presidency. A group comes out, I'm not going to say that Miyetti Allah is a terrorist group, but Miyetti Allah comes out and says, oh, the federal president has to resign, and says we kill people because they set a certain law in the state. You know, and nobody's arrested. The leadership is not arrested. The office of the group is not closed down. Nobody was invited by the DSS to answer questions. And then you see people who are just normal politicians or private citizens make some certain statements against the government, and the next day they are invited by the DSS. It shows that the government priority is not about dealing with the security areas of the country, but about forcing themselves on Nigerians to remain in power.
Okay. Well, let me get your thoughts on it, particularly on this last plank, proscription as a terrorist group, or outrightly dealing with the issue. Which one should we really be more concerned about?
I'm concerned about both. You see, when you proscribe a group and you tag them as a terrorist group, it means it becomes priority A for the government and for the security apparatus. Again, is that you are also calling the attention of the international community that there is certain exigency on our hand that demand, the global approach, the immediate attention of the international community. Again, is that will also help, to mobilize resources, galvanize the base of both material and human resources in order to decisively deal with the situation at hand. Now, Mr. Sonny Duke, in reacting and responding to what my brother here said, Prince Omodio, he said this group is not a Fulani, they are not a Fulani herdsmen, they are just herdsmen. I don't care whether they are herdsmen or whether they are legsmen or they are handsmen. You see, Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria provides very expressly, and I quote, that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of governance. What it means is that this is the benchmark, the ultimate benchmark of assessing the performance of any government. Once you have failed on this threshold, you have failed woefully. On the point of security and the welfare of the people, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari recorded a monumental failure.
This is a subjective opinion because
it is an opinion, Mr. Senator. I'm not a Nigerian.
Just hold on a moment. When we say you're saying it's a monumental failure as it relates to security and welfare, that may not be absolutely correct, because even in line with the security and the welfare, they also may have recorded some score points, which of course you're not even factoring into your comments.
Mr. Shoneyuk, yes, let me give you a premise for why I arrive at that submission. I have consistently voted Buhari since 23.
Is this a personal grudge? Is this a personal grudge?
It's personal. I'm Nigerian.
You have a personal grudge against the president.
Do you want to remove me from this country? I'm a Nigerian.
Yes.
I voted him in 23. I voted him in 27. I voted him in 2011. I voted him in 2015. Because I felt I was deceived anyway. By thinking.
By who? You were not deceived. You were convinced by what was given to you.
I was deceived by what people like you put on the media space.
You were not deceived.
The media practitioners that deceived us.
You were not deceived.
Because there was a marathon. There was a marathon.
You are accusing the public,
making us believe that this man have the capacity, both human and material, to rescue us, to salvage us, from what we were.
So are you disappointed?
I'm monumentally disappointed.
Okay, let me pause you there. Let me get Obaseki in. Yeah.
Sorry, Duke.
Yeah.
Once again. It quite saddens my heart that my brother, the gentleman, the barrister, is so susceptible to make beliefs. Who knows if the same way now, it's not accusing the media of convincing Mbaba Buhari, not the same way he will also blame the media tomorrow about Trump's statement. But what I'm trying to say in essence, sir, to due respect, is that there are some issues, many of them the same we all look, but we see it different. There are some issues that are so subjective that it require extra critique for you to be able to assess the core of the issue.
If the issue is so real, why do you need extra? It will be obvious. What do you think?
Because this is a political society in which before you are able to get the details, there are so many opinions that comes about it. If something happens now, the PDP government, PDP party is interested, APC is interested, and it is whose information you get first that lays the foundation in your heart. That's the gospel truth. And if that information has been manipulated, at least, I'm going to talk about two issues here, propaganda and, of course, welfare. To react to what my friend, the gentleman, I agree with what my brother said here about security. Basically, when you are fighting security, you don't advertise your methods. You don't advertise your method. At least in my first degree, I did diplomacy. You don't advertise your method. Because let me tell you, they say since the hunters have learned to shoot without missing,
Yes.
the birds have also learned to fly without perching.
Okay, I just want to add something to that. If you say, as part of security strategies, you don't advertise your methods, if those methods are working and producing the right results, the strategy will be applauded and will advertise itself. Don't you think so?
Because one thing you must know is that Nigeria is a country in which there's so much, as I did very just now, there's so much of interest in our politics. So much interest. Are you not alarmed by the number of parties that are registered? So you mean when you have a place with such a high level of interest, you won't have sabotage? Is that what you're telling me? People are desperate to do all manner of things. If it costs somebody in Nigeria, in fact your brother and friend, to become the anchor of ITV, they'll say Sonny Dike, you're a thief, so that they will just have a reason to remove from the city. It's a common phenomenon. But however, a wise person will carefully look at what has Sonny Dike done. What has he done humanly wrong? What has he done humanly right? Is it such that that justice should be tampered with mercy? The point I'm trying to make here is this. As regards security, the federal government, as a Nigerian, a concerned citizen, the best I can do is not to applaud our government agencies when they have not scored 100 over 100. But the issue here is this. Many a time you want to measure our society with the Western world. These guys, they have facilities. And this democracy you are saying, the Trump that is talking, Trump is a beneficiary of a democracy that is well over 250 years.
How can you describe the president of a free world as talking?
Yes, because said by Paris.
Yes. He said from Baba Diarrhea.
Yes, he didn't say. I did not bother you.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm sorry, I may have to withdraw any kind of compliments I have for President Trump, because his statements does not befit his posture and his personality as well as his office.
Okay, let me proceed that. I'll come back to you. You've been to say something on this. Yes. Let me just get your thoughts, because I want to take us to...
I want to go to another level in this. Trump's statement was economically motivated. Before the meeting, he was saying good of Buhari, right? But after the meeting, because Buhari did not endorse his agenda,
that's not true.
Became a lifeless man.
Okay.
So don't forget
but were you there?
I'm an investigative journalist.
I know.
And I do my research very well. I don't pick my news from the social media or from the mainstream media. Okay. I get my news even from America, even from Holland, where I was based for 5 years. So that man, you see, is not happy with Buhari because Buhari did not endorse his agenda. Period.
What's his agenda?
I will tell you later.
All right, gentlemen, just join us. Of course, it's still TMI Monday. X-ray again. Some of the issues that have been at the front burner as it relates to the lifeless saga that has, been there, courtesy of President Donald Trump against our own president, who right now is in China. I mean, lifeless. The man is in China, working hard just to ensure he drives the country in the right direction. How do you juxtapose these two positions? Well, that's something you should brood on. Okay, let's look at something again. I think it was last week. The president was at the NBA conference, where he said, in dealing with rule of law, we must also consider national interest and national security. Lawyers like Barrister Ogage, senior advocates of Nigeria, went around and then were reacting that what is paramount in any country is the rule of law. I respect that Fares will be different on this one with Mr. President.
My brother, thank you so much. It is good that we talk about this thing.
Yes.
It's very good that we also enlighten our people. And let me start by sympathizing with my brothers here. It's not very easy to defend a government that has failed. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult task.
So let's not say a government
that is not doing well.
It's
very difficult to defend a government that is not doing well.
Okay.
So I can understand my brothers and their sentiments.
Even that is also not also because that's also absolute. But yes, that is not doing well in some area and it's not doing well in some area. That's the question. Before I even answer that question, okay.
I want to correct something. When you particularly said the president has done well in some areas in terms of security. But when measuring security, you measure it with figures. You understand? In January this year, there was a publication that more than 2,000 people have died from the herdsmen attack. More than 2,000. And the population of Igosa should be around, officially should be around about 5,000. So what you are telling me is that 40%, just like you call and say 40% of the people in this community where we are right now have died. That's in context. Now, going to the question of the rule of law. Well, I feel sorry for Mr. President because his background, he has always believed in force. He always believed in the gun. He has always believed in violence and not violence per se, but his antecedents has always been from the military background. So he doesn't understand the rules of democracy and the rules of civil procedures. Now, the rule of law, any country that wants to be a great country must entrench the rule of law. It's not negotiable. It's not what you come out and start negotiating. Nigeria is not Guantanamo Bay. And the reason why Guantanamo Bay is not in America because the rule of law will not permit it in America. You understand? So you cannot come out and say that security challenges should suppress the rule of law. Nigeria has a constitution. The constitution is born from the rule of law. That is why the constitution says that you should protect the rights of every Nigerian. Every Nigerian. Every Nigerian has a right. Even the guy who you accuse of corruption has a right. And you should respect the rights. You should respect the courts. What we've seen in the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is a tendency of neglect for the rule of law, which have never been this bad. We've seen, in all our eyes, we've seen how security operatives in a Gestapo style have invaded the National Assembly. We've seen where courts have asked that people should be released on bail several times, and the presidency has refused. We see where court will give injunctions, and the ruling party will ignore it. We've seen it in so many cases. We've seen it recently in Imo State where an injunction is given to a particular group to say, okay, a restraint is put on the other group, and they ignore it because it's not a trend, a very dangerous slide. Because one thing that you should do is that institutions and strong men, they are two different. When you empower strong men and you weaken institutions, then you are causing a problem for the country. Let me explain. Now, in the US, you have the FBI, you have the CIA, you have the presidency, you have the legislative arm, and you have the judiciary. You see the sitting president, 5 or 6 of his men have been indicted, prosecuted and indicted. One of them is awaiting trial. These are people who campaign, who worked, who handled campaign funds for the sitting president. What does that tell you? The institutions that fight corruption in the US, nobody can interfere with it. Even the sitting president cannot interfere with it. But what do you see here? We have strong men and weak institutions. You have an institution whereby a so-called big man, because he's a government, goes to a particular agency and says, oh, this person has accused me of something, or this person, I don't like him, arrest him, prosecute him, and it is done. And that is a dangerous life, because we are not shifting from a culture of allowing the law take its course to a culture where strong men now control what happens in Nigeria. And that is a dangerous life.
Okay, what is the rule of law? Because you're a lawyer. Tell us, Barrister Gwagi.
You see, when Mr. President made that comment, I'm not sure you understand the enormity of what the comment he made.
But he read it from a prepared speech?
I'm not sure he understood the concept and principle of rule of law. Perhaps he was making reference to the judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of FRON, that's Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Asari Dokubo, when the Apex Court, said that the security takes precedence over
rule of law,
every other thing. However, let us situate that judgment in proper perspective, in proper context. When the Supreme Court gave that judgment, they didn't have it in mind that persons will be stripped of their rights without credence to the procedures of fundamental human rights. Again, is that the Supreme Court did not also have it in mind that people will be stripped of their rights, or people will be imprisoned, recklessly and unlawfully, without respect for the basic law of the land. Again, is that the Supreme Court did not also have it in mind that people will be thrown and slammed into prison, in a Gestapo style, and in flagrant disrespect, for court order. Courts, again and again, will order for the release of certain individual, and the government will disobey. That is not exactly what the court had in mind. Now, to answer your question directly, what is rule of law? Rule of law presupposes equality before the law. It presupposes that there's nobody below the law and there's nobody above the law.
Okay.
It presupposes respect for the fundamental rights of all citizens, and that even if these rights will be denied, the proper procedure must be followed.
Okay. Okay, let me pass you there. Ike, quickly, a major issue that has been at the front burner with this debate about the rule of law is the continuous detention of Colonel Sambo Dasuki, former NSA. Of course, I recall that at the beginning of the present administration, live TV broadcast, the president said he will not be swayed away with sentiments and emotions to release Dasuki, who, according to him, was a security threat and all of that. So, but what is your assessment of the present administration in terms of adherence to the tenets of the rule of law against the background of the reactions that have trailed these comments by Mr. President at the NBA conference?
Well, one thing I know is this. Like I earlier said, as a Nigerian, it's my duty to make sure that our government, as well as governmental agencies, are 100% efficient. So when an individual or an agency scores 95%, I still expect that individual or the organization to do more. Now, what am I saying? What I'm saying in essence is that I will use this medium to also appeal to His Excellency, Mr. President. You know, because, now let me tell you something we must know. Is that according to, like the way my colleague and friend here said, that the principal duty of the president is what? Security and survival.
That's welfare now.
That is welfare.
Okay.
So it then follows that whatever contradicts that at that point in time, you usually say in simple law terms that so-and-so law constitution will prevail against the other. So I think the matter of national security will prevail
Over the rule of law.
Just
depends on the calm down. Depends on the context now.
Okay.
The rule of law is that when you are coming to arrest me, you must have warrant or whatever. And you as a security operative, you have just been briefed that somebody has just been butchered in my backyard. Or there's an impending weapon coming to attack me. It couldn't be that you are coming to arrest me to keep me, have me safekeeping first of all. And two, don't forget that the president has some vetoes. Because he's the one that is held liable now.
I want to veto is to veto rule of law.
I've not said veto rule of law.
Okay.
Calm down. I've not said veto rule of law.
Okay.
Because the context they are taking this statement, I don't think is proper. It's unfair. It's unfair. Because people can call all manner of things anything. If I want to defend something wrong, all I need to do is to give it a legal name. And we don't call lawyers liars, you know, but we understand how they can turn white into green, blue, and all that. But what I'm saying is, as the chief CSO of the country, whatever the president required of him to do to continue the existence of Nigeria, I don't know how the opposition or how the other people may define it, whatever is necessary for him to do to protect the Nigerian sovereignty, survival, and continuity, he has my support.
Okay. Yes.
I will continue from where he just said.
Yes.
National security and what you're saying is a global phenomenon. Wherever there is an emergency, national security takes a backstage. When there's an emergency. Where was the rule of law when America established Guantanamo Bay? Whether it's in Cuba or in Africa, it's a detention camp. Where was national security or rule of law when they killed Gaddafi? Okay. A country that was flowing with milk and honey. Now they are queuing for gas, they are queuing for everything, virtually everything. Where was national security when they sacked Iraq? Where was national security when they sacked Afghanistan? I can say more. So when there is an emergency, my brother.
Sure, that's emergency.
State of emergency, I mean, rule of law take a back seat. That is that.
Can
you say my president is a failure? Go and tell that to the worry man or the Isha man. I'm from Isha, I'm from Ekmo and Igwebe. I've never seen a whale before in my life. But today, as I speak to you, they are test running the railway, which I will use to export my gari. No, what I say today. No, what I say. Go to Onitsha. They are building second Niger bridge. That was where I was born. I was born in Fig Onitsha, 1963. There was no railway line there before. But now with this second Niger bridge, railway is coming to Onitsha. From Lagos to Calabar to Otoke.
Thank you.
See, it's a failure?
Thank you.
What is building Mambila Dam now? Abi, in Mambila Plateau, that will give us 5,000 megawatts. You are saying it's not performing? Don't tell the man in worry. Because the man in worry now will take a train, air condition, with sleeper cabin to Abuja before the end of this year.
Okay.
Don't tell that to my people.
I like to respond.
They also carry my road from Hamburg to Ewu. Power carriage.
Please, I like to quickly respond.
Depends on what.
I like to quickly respond to
the points that he raised.
The points that he raised. You know, the issues here are issues that has to do with the rule of law. Concerns every one of us. He made some very funny remarks, you know, which I would like to address. He said, where is the rule of law when Libya was
Muammar Gaddafi was
removed?
Yeah.
Now, and in all of these instances that he made, I thought he was going to say, oh, You know, we will give very practical examples of where security and rule of law, you know, coincided. Now, what he is practically saying is that because I hear, or the president hears, that in Igosa there's an armed robber, he can fly his plane over and just throw bombs and kill everybody in Igosa. That's an emergency because, oh, there was an emergency to deal with the armed robber in Igosa. So there's an there's a security situation, which it is, whether you like it or not. If a guy walks in here today with a knife, it's a security situation. Yeah. And if, for that reason, the president comes and says, okay, kill everybody inside that place, I don't care who is holding the knife. It's also taking actions to avert the security situation, whether it's lawful or not. That's what we are trying to justify for him. Now, why the Constitution is very clear, in as much as it says that the president is in charge of security, and security should be the focus chorus of the president. It also makes it very clear that you must respect the fundamental rights of every Nigerian. The fundamental rights, and that is what is coinciding here, the fundamental rights and the security. Now, what makes you now discard the rights of an individual and even the rights of established institutions, because the court is an institution in this country, whether you like it or not, it's an institution. If the court, which is an independent institution, says this person, I am trying the person, we are trying the person, give him bail, we have taken his passport, we have taken everything that we need to take from him to keep him here and undergo trial, and they give you an instruction to release, and you disregard it. It is not good for the country. It is not good. So if the president feels, oh, because I hear today that a certain criminal element is in Benin, and I will not do my diligent work, I will not look for the person, I will just take any necessary action. And that necessary action can include killing everybody.
Not exactly now.
Just to justify that I am taking actions. The Constitution also says that you must respect the rule of law, you must respect the rights of Nigerians. The right of Nigerians. And that right includes the right of the freedom of information. What we are seeing today is that the media in Nigeria is being harassed. We've not seen a situation whereby the last time we saw this kind of harassment of the media is during the days of the military era. Okay. That's what we saw. But now we have gone into a dangerous slide where journalists are being arrested.
Allow the media to carry their cross.
I can speak for the rest of everybody.
All right, our time is almost up, gentlemen. Our time is almost up. But quickly, the concern really here in this debate about the rule of law versus national interest, national security, is that there's a feeling that there is an attempt to abdicate the responsibilities of the judiciary. Is that what this presents?
You see, I sympathize with my brothers here, trying to defend the indefensible. For Omodion to say when there's a security issue, the rule of law take the bar stage, I think that statement is reckless and careless. It was made from a misunderstanding.
He has the right to his opinion.
From the perspective of misunderstanding.
Just hold on, what you say is reckless and careless. That's very uncomplimentary because he has a right to his opinion. I want you to withdraw that.
Mr. Sonny, yes. I apologize.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I said that is this. You see, he cited the Guantanamo Bay as an example.
Yes.
Guantanamo Bay is not situated on U.S. soil. That's one. He made reference to Iraq, and he made reference to Libya,
Afghanistan.
These are not on U.S. soil. Now, the U.S. as a community is governed, is held together by the principle of rule of law and respect for the rights of individuals. If these events, these reckless events, were to take place on U.S. soil, there certainly will be a backlash and consequence. Now, I want to conclude here. This is my final thoughts on the issue. I want to repeat that our Constitution, Section 14, Subsection 2, Paragraph B says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of governance. Now, in interpreting that, the drafters of the Constitution did not intend, rather, that in enforcing security, the laws of the land would take backstage.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
What it means is that in enforcing the security, you must follow laid down procedure.
Which is the rule of law
itself. No.
All right. Okay, we're rounding up the program now. Just to cap it up finally, on all the issues that we've looked at, just get final thoughts from Prince Charles Omorojon and of course IK Obaseki. Gentlemen, thanks again for coming. Fares and Pastor Obagi.
No final thoughts from us. And 2 final thoughts from
okay. All right, so let me get your final words. Yeah.
Yes, to change the narrative before I leave here, I want to seize this opportunity to beg our legislators that their period of the 8th Senate and the 8th House of Representatives is laced with unparalleled bureaucratic mediocrity, filled with filibusters. We want you to amend the Constitution of Nigeria, because that is where the problem comes from. If you can amend the Constitution of Nigeria so that we can have independent candidacy, like now you say you don't like my president, then you can be free to vote anybody you want to vote for, so that you don't go to any political party to start buying leaders and delegates to become a president. I can contest to become president. Okay. Because I want to be the chairman of Igwebe local government area, okay. So I don't need to go to any party.
Okay. You don't need to go to any leader?
Yeah, any leader to settle him. So that I can become a chairman of local government or president of Nigeria. You can also do the same.
All right, let me get final word from IK. Yeah.
The only thing I have to say for now is, you, as a Nigerian, you have the right to differ on policy evaluation. You also have a right to appreciate this method against the other method. But please, we should learn to have some respect for our individuality. Whether chairman, councillor, or president, first of all, know that he's a human being. Then secondly, development is a process and not an event. I don't expect people to be talking by now. They have had 60 years, they used their 16 years of Kalu. APC have only done 3 years, and we can see a lot of things that are going on. Go to market.
Okay. All right, Fares, the last word from you.
Let me thank you for this.
You better respond.
Yes, but quickly, let me quickly say something about what he said, that the 8th Senate should amend the Constitution. Right now, the President is sitting on the Electoral Act. He has refused to sign. It's more than 30 days which he was given to sign. And the Electoral Act, part of the amendment, which he was given before, he sent it back, said he didn't like it, and part of it is to amend the Electoral Act so that the card reader can become legitimate. Because what you have right now, we have a system where the card reader is alien to the law. The law is trying to make the card reader the legitimate technology which will be used to accredit voters before election. And the president is very afraid of signing that law because he doesn't.
He's very afraid.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, he's very afraid because he does not want free and fair elections.
He does. He said, I read it this morning that.
But what he's doing is not.
No, I read it this morning where the president said that he's not afraid of free, fair.
Of course. He has to sign the law if he's not afraid. Sign it. That's what brought it. Sign it.
My final thought is that as a president of a country, you have the constitutional responsibility to provide for the security and welfare of everybody, including the 95% that voted you and the 5% that did not vote for you. You have the responsibility to provide security and welfare for everybody, including Muslims, Christians, Fulani, Hausa, Yoruba, and the South alike. This message goes out to Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Well, of course, in an election year, it's difficult for us to exhaust issues as we may, but I just like what these guys are doing because this is how it's supposed to be. We don't have feelings at all. We have a right to our respective and individual opinion, irrespective of our political affiliations. If those at the top in leadership position will see this as a way of life, all the bickerings and all the rancors will be a thing of the past. All we just want is a better Nigeria that will provide for all, provide for the security and welfare as enshrined in the Constitution as the primary responsibility of government. Bye for now.